So we're in the middle of a series on living well, are we not? And a few things have happened in the middle of this series that kind of go along with the theme. You know, we come onto this planet and we expect, I think, after a bit of time to have an experience of living well, and then plans change. So give it up for Reverend Brandon Nagel for doing 2 Sunday sermons in a row with Saturday night notice. So we had 3 Sundays planned, and that got shifted around. And how often in life do things change and get shifted around from what we think we could expect, what we think is going to happen, and instead of thinking of things as an opportunity or just being inquisitive, just saying, what's here, what's going on, we go, something's wrong. Something's against me. What could it be that I come into this job and then the moment she leaves, it's all on my plate. There is a temptation in the human psyche, in the ego mind, that we're going to talk about today. So today is about living well, and today is about using unity principles for living well, or living well with unity principles. But the subtext of today is no thing is against me. Nothing is against me. Can you breathe into that possibility? The idea and the possibility that it could be true that we live in an interactive universe where nothing is working against me. Can you put your faith in that? Faith is the perceiving power of the mind, Charles Fillmore, Unity's co-founder, said. The perceiving power of the mind linked with the ability to shape substance. So linked with the ability to actually shape that principle, that truth, that law into reality. So it's not just a dead law. It's an interactive law. It's an idea that when I take on the possibility, when I can put my faith, my perceiving power into the concept that there is no thing against me, I activate a whole realm of possibilities and experiences that show me the evidence that this is true. Now, that's not how a lot of us live all of the time, and even those of us that think we live that way, we find ourselves challenged, do we not? And if we don't think we find ourselves challenged, we can always ask those who love us and those around us for examples of how we might show up where we're in the illusion that there is something against me. But in unity, we teach there is one power and one presence, God, the good omnipotence, that this power is love, it is wisdom, it is divine mind, it is everywhere accessible, and that it is good, it is for us, not against us. So there's no idea that there is a devil, that there's a power, that there is something negative that is drawing activity into your life, into my life. Can we put our faith in that? Can we rigorously apply this concept to our lives and actually live by it? This, friends, is the invitation. The payoff when we do this is that we begin to see this as true. We begin to live in the gratitude for this knowledge and appreciation that this universe is interactive, it is co-creative, and that how we show up for it actually makes a difference. That we're not just recipients of our lives, but we are co-creators in life. Charles Fillmore, Unity co-founder, said this: "You will never find a better time to come into the realization of the truth of who and what you are and what your rights are. Never was a more propitious time to seek, never has there been another, to seek a new and better state of consciousness." There has never been a better time to seek a new and better state of consciousness. So part of our unity principles and part of our unity practice, when applied to living well, is to actually take these ideas and start understanding the law, start working with the law. And until we do work with the law, and spiritual law is what I'm talking about, we make up all sorts of ideas about how this universe works. And when we have ideas about how the universe works, the funny thing is that we tend to live by them. We tend to live under them. We tend to live by the limits that we believe in. So we can either live by limits or we can know our spiritual birthright. We have the choice. But this means that until we understand higher principles or higher laws, we are under the dominion of other ideas and limitations. That happens until we have a right understanding, like Fillmore says, of the law. And this means that that we collectively go beyond the ideas of something outside of us putting a negative force on us or doing negative things in our lives to the kind of like devil in our own minds or the devil in the collective consciousness, the idea of separation or the idea of stepping apart, limitation that just exists in the mind and can be easily remedied. Maybe not easily, right, but simple. It's simple. Sometimes practicing truth is not easy, but it's always simple. The barriers that we think are often so huge are just a thought away as far as dissolving them. Think about some of the things that you do in your own life that you may have noticed that are not helpful. Some of the recurring patterns of thinking that you find yourself in that lead you to places where you feel separate, where you feel hurt, where you feel disconnected, whatever it is, a thinking pattern, a behavior pattern that leads you to places that you don't like to be. And if you can't think of that, think of what everyone always does to hurt you. They're one and the same. There's different ways to perceive them. If you keep perceiving that it's outside of you and happening to you, well, then it's time to just get used to the experience because it's not going to change, right? But when we start seeing that it actually is existent within us, that I have a thing, I have a shtick, maybe my thing is that I don't feel included, right? I have a framework in my mind or in my being, in my emotional experience, that I recurringly do not feel included. My brain, my psyche looks for evidence to show me that is true. It is constantly seeking validation for that thought. And if I just ride with that, that will keep building up. But if you've ever been courageous enough to have a conscious conversation when a challenge comes up, you often find that what was in your mind, right, was only living there. It wasn't actually living outside of you. It actually wasn't matching someone else's intention or how someone else was meaning to show up or whatever the other experience is in the outside world. That it was actually a figment of your own imagination. It was a birth of your own creation that caused suffering that you lived within or under and from unnecessarily. Do we question the truth of our perception? Can we question the truth of our perception when we feel like something is against us? Can we stop and ask the question, is that true? Byron Katie's question, is that true? No thing is working against me. When we master that idea, we put our faith in it, and we live by it, we are living well. One of my favorite Unity authors, Sig Paulson, who was here at Unity Village Chapel in the days of old, said this: "Until man accepts his own selfhood, he is out of tune with the creative activity that produced him. He is estranged from his creator and from his fellow men. He is constantly singing sour notes rather than the harmony he is designed to express. He is insecure, self-concerned, self-sensitive, fearful, selfish, sick, unenlightened. Only by accepting his selfhood right where he is in understanding, adding to it, realizing that he is the way the light shines into this world, and being willing to personalize that light, can he move ahead on the pathway of self-unfoldment that leads to unselfishness, the sense of security and peace that makes him a light in the world." That's our invitation. That's our opportunity. Anytime we're in those limited states of consciousness, to apply this law as if it's true and say, show me this truth. If this is true, then open my perception, open my perspective. No thing is working against me. When we start to engage in these questions where we ask ourselves, is this true? When we try to live by the template of no thing against me, we start to ask ourselves different questions and be open to possibilities, which open the potentiality for other experiences. Our belief system informs the question we ask. Are we willing to ask better questions of the universe? I was watching a film on my recent trip on the plane coming home, and I didn't get to see all of it, but I saw this perfect point. The film is called The Aftermath, and it's about a British couple, a husband and a wife, who move into post-war Reconstruction Germany. And the wife is very resentful that she has to be here. And as it was at the time, they moved them into someone's house who had lived there, right? So this is like an enemy. And they took the person's house and gave it to this couple. And the couple decided to let the owners of the house stay. And they put them, up in the attic, and they got the whole house. So it's an interesting situation that they're all living with. So all of the servants who have always served in this house and done all of the meal preparation and all of that are still working. They're still working, but now they have different people in the house that they are working for. And this woman is constantly snubbing everyone because she's British. So the owner of the house, the people that are employed there, constantly snubbing everyone, feeling like this is all against me. Her whole mindset, her whole framework is all of this is against me because I didn't choose it and I don't want it. And they're sitting there having dinner one night, the husband and the wife, and she's served her meal, and she says something to the woman who served her meal, and she gets kind of a chuckle back, like kind of a look back. And then the woman walks off. And the British woman says to her husband, "Look, she's doing it again. She's smirking." And she goes on to say, "I was just making an effort." And his response was kind of like, "I know you were." So she has an assumption now, right? She's had an experience, and she has an assumption. Guess what his response is? His response is, when she thought she was saying the food is delicious and she thought she was making an effort and trying to kind of heal the divide, be a little more hospitable, she said, "She is delicious." Which made the woman serving the meal chuckle. How often in life does something happen like that? Does something happen that we have an idea of what happened, but we never get that information? We never get that chuckle. We go along believing something is against us, and then we build upon that, right? That snotty look turns into this, which turns into this, which turns into this, which turns into this. Whole universe doesn't love me, support me, it doesn't include me, it's not grateful for me, fill in the blank, whatever your stuff is. She tastes delicious. When you have a perspective, can you pause? Can we give ourselves time to question the mind? And if in a moment we don't have the time, or it's not the right circumstance, or we don't have the courage to question the interaction or the response, whatever it is that we're experiencing in our universe, maybe we don't have the opportunity. Can we give ourselves 3 possibilities? Can we give ourselves 3 hypotheses? The one that we naturally had, that we hear immediately, that we don't even have to come up with, the one that just arrives. And can we honor that and say, "I hear you"? But then can we say, "It's also possible that," and fill in the blank with 2 other unlike that possibilities? What this does is it loosens up the brain. It loosens up the neural pathways. It takes the ego and it lets it have a little break, right? It opens the realm of possibilities and helps get a little more into the possible reality that we just might not know, or that we might need to seek more to find some answers. Are there room for other perspectives? When we believe we live in an active and interactive universe, we ask different questions. When we open the space for other possibilities, when we open the space to know that we don't know everything, that we make a lot of assumptions, we can begin to help the universe that is helping us. How can I help the universal impulse that is helping me? How can I help myself be helped? Certainly by engaging the law, the principle, the idea that there is no thing against me. Now, before having my beautiful, beloved baby girl, went through a series of miscarriages. Some of you were on that journey with me. There were a lot of temptations on that path. There were a lot of opportunities to have a lot of stories around that. Why me? What's wrong? Am I not supposed to? Should I not? What's going on? Is it ever going to? What did I do? How is this happening? A lot of those ideas. There were so many opportunities to feel like something was against me. I believe that we live in a loving and supportive universe. I believe that there is no thing against us. There is no power trying to hurt us. There is no thing taking something from us. There is no thing giving to some and taking from others. The sun shines on everyone equally. I believe that in the core of my being. So I asked a different question. I started to breathe into the pain, breathe into the suffering, breathe into the experience. And every time a limited thought would come up, I would say, is that true? So if I had a thought that was like, well, now I'm a solo woman, am I going too far to try to make this happen? That's not right. Is that not right? Is that my sign? I should not do this. And then I thought about my same-sex loving couples, and they gave me hope. And I thought, no, I believe in the core of my being, every same-sex loving couple deserves to have and to welcome life onto this planet. Okay, cancel that thought. That could not be against me. Okay, next thought, bring it on. And I tried each one on, one at a time, as they came up to try to keep me in this place of believing that something is against me. And you know what I finally came to in asking myself that question? I finally came to this realization when I had to put all of the limiting thoughts aside. I sat with my questions. And the realization I had is that this is life living itself. This is nature. And though I'm a spiritual being, I am also part of nature. I am also a creature of the earth. I'm a critter. And all of a sudden, all of these examples of life trying to come in, showed up for me. And it was just this beautiful natural epiphany of how hard it is sometimes for life to get here. In nature, when animals procreate, not many of them survive a lot of times, right? Our world is full of fires and destruction and, creation, seeds growing and things dying. And that's not because something's against us. That's not because something's against the Mother Earth herself. Because an animal may have how many cubs and they might not all make it, right? I thought about all of that, and it wasn't like a mind thought. It was just like an experience. And of all the women that have come before that have had this same experience and how universal it is. And it became beautiful in a really weird way. It became grounding, and I became part of a tribe. I became part of a field of mothering a field of birthing, and it was like an initiation and a rite of passage. And I'm not saying that that epiphany took away or was greater than the suffering, but it was a salve that soothed it to the point of feeling grounded and grateful. Grounded and grateful. Because in that moment I felt held. I felt cradled. I felt connected. I knew, right? Get this. I knew that there wasn't something against me. In fact, there was a whole field of like, welcome, sister. Here we are. Welcome, sister. Here we are. For each of us that have our struggles, for all of our collective struggles, there is a greater force, a greater presence, and a greater power. And it is not only neutral, it is not only not against us, it is for us. It is right here in every moment, whispering and inviting us to come home, to come back into the fold of wholeness, to feel ourselves as complete and beloved. It challenges the ideas that the mind wants to go into when the mind says everything should be a human's idea of perfect all of the time. Life shouldn't have hardships. Things shouldn't be bad or go wrong. It challenges all of that, and it simply invites us into grace, into peace, and into wholeness. So are we willing? Are we willing to breathe into living well? To sit with our wanting, to sit with our lives, to allow what is ours to come to us, and to ask ourselves, does this thought, belief, perspective, feeling keep happiness from me? Or does it offer me emancipation? Does it offer me freedom? Does it offer me a sense of belonging and a sense of home? We start to ask ourselves different questions and open up to possibilities, which open up the potential for other experiences when we question our reality. Our beliefs frame the questions we ask, and the questions we ask frame the answers we get. Those answers we get frame our experience of living well. What is for you cannot be taken away. We live in a universe that loves us, supports us, and wants us to thrive. Let that sink in. Can we breathe into that? We live in a universe that loves us, supports us, and wants us to thrive. I've begun thinking about my daughter now when I work on these conversations that we have. And it comes to my mind to think, if that's not something that I would want her to take with her, is it worth saying? Is it worth talking about? Is it worth discussing? And I thought for her, when I thought about this, I thought for her that if there is something that I could share, and you get that you are her and we are all her, if there was something that I could share, something that she would take away for her life, it would be the gift of knowing that she has the power to take away any false barriers to her happiness, her peace, and her living well. That anything that doesn't really need to be in the way, especially anything that really isn't in the way, may be dissolved and go back to the nothingness from which it came. Eric Butterworth said, "Faith is not a magical means of working miracles. Get that out of your consciousness. You are the great miracle. And the dynamics of faith is the key to the kingdom of your own potentiality." Namaste.